Hello, my name is Sridhar Venkatapuram. I'm an associate professor at the King's College London in the United Kingdom. I would like to talk to you about three questions that I've been having over the last 6 months regarding this pandemic and the relationship between science and philosophy. So the first question is this idea of what is the cause of this pandemic? A lot of people would immediately identify this as being a virus that caused this pandemic. And I want us to think a bit differently and a bit broadly about it, which is that the virus didn't appear on its own magically. It was actually came into existence because of a variety of different kinds of environmental and social conditions. So the kinds of social policies and regulations that were in place were the environment that allowed this biological organism to be created. So the cause, when we say what is the cause of this pandemic, it's not just the virus, but it's also before the virus came to be, the different kinds of social and physical conditions that were created or allowed to be created for the virus to come into existence. The second question that I want to think about with you and what I'm interested in is if we, on the one hand, have this idea about the cause of the pandemic, we want to ask the question, well, who is responsible for doing something about the pandemic? And I think that this is also a really interesting question for both scientists, but also politicians and other people in society, which is that how we define the cause determines who we hold responsible for the cause as well as for the social response. So if we had said the cause was because of God, then we have no one to hold responsible for the cause or to do something about it. But if we say something like, this was caused by a biological organism, then we say, oh, this is a scientific biological problem. But if we say, oh, actually, the cause is something that we created from our regulations or policies or the environment that we've created or the neglect of different kinds of conditions, then the people responsible for it become us. And so this is a really important question, is that science intersects with causation in very interesting ways, and how science identifies the cause then immediately has implications for who is responsible for doing something about controlling the epidemic and the implications and the consequences from the epidemic. The third question that, for me, that is worth thinking about is that what is the aim of controlling the epidemic? This might seem a very odd or very strange question because someone says, well, of course, it's to control the virus, it's controlling the deaths. But if you actually look at the way that we are implementing policies, the primary aim is not necessarily always to control infections. So the primary aim might be we want to control as many infections as possible, or we want to protect the economy. We want to ensure that the security of the country is protected, or we want, some people might be interested in protecting national pride. So there's many different goals that you will see as being implemented in policies. And one of the really important things about contagion, about epidemics, is the role of public deliberation in the policies regarding pandemics and how we control them, because it's not just simply a scientific policy that we're talking about. So even in a pandemic, science is not just biological science, but requires a combination of different kinds of disciplines. But most importantly, the beautiful and the terrible thing about this is that you have to understand that human reasoning is the thing that connects all of these three questions and all of these different kinds of activities, from the observations of the organisms to holding people accountable to developing policies and engaging people in discussions about what the right thing to do, is actually the common thread is the human reasoning that sort of connects those two and actually determines both the cause and the response.